As always, a very warm welcome back to the channel. Be sure to subscribe if you're new and enjoy these aviation recaps. In today's episode, there's coverage on the continued fallout from that Boeing incident and customers expressing their frustrations over what's been taking place. There are developments in the leasing side of the industry as an airline battles grounding of their Airbus aircraft. And lastly, a carrier is expanding its route network. But where to begin, other than the headline story of Emirates, who have become the latest customer of Boeing to express frustrations over the American plane maker's continued problems. In an interview with the Financial Times, the Emirates executive Sir Tim Clark, typically known for his outspoken nature, said that Emirates will go and inspect Boeing's production lines for the first time in their history. A move will see critical engineers from the company head to Boeing to better understand what occurs on the floor and just how aircraft are produced. This is in response to that door blowout and subsequent quality problems being identified. Emirates, as a large customer of the plane maker, wants to make sure that issues on the floor aren't going to trickle down to their aircraft. However, Emirates isn't the first airline to do something similar. We know Alaska Airlines promptly announced they'd send their own team to inspect Boeing's line, and on a higher level, the governing body, the FAA, are launching their own investigation. But the frustrations are growing. Sir Tim Clark has warned that Boeing is on its last chance, essentially, following persistent quality issues, delays, and other problems impacting customers, including Emirates. Clark did go on to say that Boeing must instill a culture where safety is second to none, and they need not to cut corners with their production processes. And he hopes that a thorough review that is taking place now will allow for all of these problems to be rectified. However, sending engineers towards Boeing, as I touched on right at the beginning of this piece, is actually the first time the company has done so in its history. And what it's doing is highlighting a very common trend that we're now seeing broadly across our industry. That trend is airlines questioning the plane maker, inspecting how planes are being produced, and exploring other aircraft options. While analysts believe that it could simply be these companies doing their due diligence to ensure the safety of those that board their aircraft and employees stay intact, equally there's a belief that airline customers shouldn't have to do this and should have complete trust in the plane maker that they're spending billions of dollars on for their product. Boeing has publicly stated that they'll do everything to restore the confidence in its customers, but they do know that this will take time, and it's not something that will happen just overnight. It's important not just how they respond to the incidents, but move forward on a daily basis. So Emirates and the 777X, well, it's something I think that is worth noting. Emirates is the largest customer of the upcoming widebody, and despite recently committing to more units towards the back end of 2023, they are an airline that is very much publicly criticized Boeing over the delays and expressed their own frustrations centered to just this aircraft type. While some have questioned the motive around such frustrations, especially because in the end they just committed to more aircraft, so some would say that maybe these frustrations were their attempts to try and get aircraft on the cheap, get improvements in their contract, or maybe they were generally annoyed. The point does remain. The airline has experienced lengthy delays in getting these aircraft, and while there are supply chain problems industry-wide, this relates also to the entry into service and approval of the aircraft, which Boeing has struggled to get on time. Reports in 2023 did indicate that Emirates will see a test 777-9 arrive in Dubai this year, which will allow them to better prepare themselves for the eventual arrival of the first unit next year, tentatively. Emirates will have experienced, by the time this plane arrives, an over 5-year delay. These delays impacts things such as finances, retirement plans, and network growth. And while there have been visible frustrations that have centered around the 777X in the past, Clark's latest comments really do relate to the concerns around production standards, which, at least from my point of view, is a far more deep-rooted problem than, say, just a certification program. And while you could argue in some instances they're linked, his focus is elsewhere for this. You can let me know your thoughts to his responses down below in the comments. But let's move over to India's Indigo, one of the leading airlines currently battling the Pratt & Whitney engine problems that are directly impacting many Airbus aircraft right around the world. As a result, the airline is currently looking towards the leasing market. to help cover lost capacity and drive future growth plans that it believes it's been unable to achieve to an adequate manner because so many Airbus planes have been parked. Indigo has warned on several occasions that it will expect anywhere from 10 to 20% lower growth in the most recent quarters, again, as it battles with these groundings and the lack of a leasing market that might be available to it. While Indigo has significant growth plans, including substantial orders, the Airbus A320 family is primarily sold out through the 2030s, which means the potential for short-term acquisitions don't exist unless you go to that leasing market. So what are the latest reports? Well, Indigo, per local media, is reportedly in talks with Qatar Airways about a leasing arrangement to acquire none other than 737 MAX jets. If agreed, the deal would be done under a wet lease agreement per sources, which means Qatar Airways would provide their crews and other resources to the airline. Ultimately, Indigo isn't unfamiliar with drafting aircraft thanks to losing capacity through these difficulties. And they aren't the only airline, as I've covered with Air New Zealand, Spirit, JetBlue, and many others. The Pratt & Whitney engine crisis has certainly taken no prisoners, and so many airlines have either had to look towards the leasing market or simply been forced to cut routes of theirs in order to preserve the integrity of their network. The MAX jets are actually configured with business class seats, and many people in forums have already discussed the potential possibilities regarding premium, domestic, or international services for the time being. Obviously, though, the absolute main goal will be to get these Airbus aircraft finally back in the skies and not have to keep dealing with these really frustrating groundings that stem again from those engine problems at Pratt & Whitney. On to the final story of today, and that sits with Copa Airlines, who have said that they'll be adding 3 routes to their route network as part of continued efforts to expand their operations. The 3 services will include departure points from Tulum in Mexico, which has definitely been the focal point of many airlines' most recent expansions, whether to or from the location, and ultimately the airline will now serve a network of 75 destinations across 32 countries in Central, South, and North America, with also operations to the Caribbean. Copa says it'll launch flights towards Raleigh Durham from the 21st of June. This will be a 4 times weekly service departing on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. From June 26th, 2024, service between Tulum and Panama will mark the 5th destination in Mexico connected. The flight will also operate 4 times weekly with a morning departure at 7:45. Lastly, 1 day earlier, on the 25th of June 2024, service between Panama and Florianopolis in Brazil will also commence. This one, though, will be thrice weekly, with a departure time in the afternoon. Great news for Copa, as they're looking to continue expanding their network and making connectivity in these regions easier. That's going to conclude today's aviation news recap. I'm sure many of you will have some pretty strong opinions on Emirates' frustrations and maybe how Indigo is battling with those Airbus groundings. You can let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. As always, I can't thank you enough for the support you continue to show here on the channel. I really do appreciate it, and like I say, if you're new to the channel, do be sure to subscribe. Take care, do also be safe, and I'll see you next time.